Chapter 2. The Rat Mate. That year, during the Spring Festival, many events unfolded. The truth behind Hu Guohua's paper woman deceit was exposed. His uncle, furious and betrayed, fell ill and passed away within 3 days. The relatives and friends of the Hu family guarded themselves against him like protecting against a thief. No loans, not even the leftovers from their meals. In a moment of dire necessity, Hu Guohua sold the last pair of sandalwood boxes in his house for $2 silver. These boxes were his mother's dowry, and he really wanted to save them as a keepsake, but the urging of addiction does not heed such sentiment. With those $2, he bought a small piece of opium and hurried home, eager to smoke. After a few puffs, he felt light and elated, as if floating on clouds. At that moment, he felt joyous like an immortal, unaffected by people's disdain and bullying from everyday life. After another hit, he noticed something dark huddled on his broken bed. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a large rat, old enough to have white whiskers and nearly the size of a cat. The old rat was inhaling the smoke escaping from Hu Guohua's opium pipe, seeming to understand the pleasure of opium, greedily savoring the scent. Hu Guohua found this amusing and said to the rat, "You got a craving for this too? Seems we're kindred spirits." After a puff for himself, he gently blew smoke towards the rat, which, sensing no harm, lifted its head to receive the cloud of smoke. Eventually satiated, the rat left at its leisure. Over the next few days, the rat regularly joined Hu Guohua for a smoke. Alone and despised by all, Hu Guohua felt an affinity for the rat, having no other friends around. Sometimes he even waited for the night-visiting rat before satisfying his own craving. The good times did not last. Hu Guohua, with nothing left but a bed and the 4 walls of his home, ran out of money to buy opium. Distressed, he lamented to the rat, "Oh, my friend, today my purse is empty, and I can no longer afford to enjoy opium with you." He sighed deeply at his predicament. The rat, seeming to understand his speech, looked thoughtful and left. That evening, it brought back a silver coin and placed it by Hu Guohua's pillow. Overjoyed, Hu Guohua bought more opium and shared an exuberant session with the rat. The next day, the rat brought 3 more silver coins. Hu Guohua was ecstatic. Recalling an old proverb from his schooling, he addressed the rat, "Bao Suya knows Guanzhong well. You know of my destitution and support me generously, truly my confidant. If you do not mind, let's become sworn brothers." Henceforth, they were comrades, calling each other brothers, sharing food, drink, and opium. Hu Guohua even prepared a cotton nest on his bed for the rat. The man and the rat lived in harmony, enjoying a friendship deeper than words. The rat brought home silver coins daily, sometimes a couple, sometimes several. From that point on, Hu Guohua no longer worried about basic needs. Years later, my grandfather would reminisce, always saying those days were the happiest of his life. For half a year or more, Hu Guohua gradually started to prosper. But there's a saying, isn't there? Fortune introduces you to fair-weather friends. Misfortune brings the fiends. Perhaps it was Hu Guohua's fate to be poor because soon enough, a scoundrel had his eye on him. There was a good-for-nothing in the village named Ruffian Wang. Unlike Hu Guohua, who at least once lived in opulence and had been young master who, for over 20 years, Ruffian Wang had not been so fortunate. From his ancestors down to his generation, none had known the luxury of owning a pair of pants that didn't expose their behinds. He took pleasure in Hu Guohua's downfall, often humiliating and bullying him, finding solace for his own miserable state by tormenting the once privileged Hu Guohua. Lately, Wang found it strange. Hu Guohua, the pauper who did no apparent business, whose assets were all pawned, and whose relatives had nearly all died off, how could he afford the daily luxury of smoking opium? Where did he get the money for the drug? Wang suspected theft and decided to keep a surreptitious watch on Hu Guohua, hoping to catch him in the act and turn him over to the authorities for a reward. However, after some observation, he noticed that other than the occasional trip to buy food and opium, Hu Guohua basically never left his house and had no dealings with anyone. The less Wang knew about the source of his money, the more it itched at him. One day, when Hu Guohua stepped out to buy food, Ruffian Wang seized the opportunity to climb over the wall into his house, rummaging through his belongings to uncover his secret. He stumbled upon a large, sleeping rat on the bed and impulsively grabbed it, tossing it into a pot of boiling water on the stove. He then pressed down the lid, thinking it amusing to watch Hu Guohua discover it upon his return. Before Ruffian Wang could make his escape, Hu Guohua came back and caught him inside. Seeing the large rat boiled alive, Hu Guohua flew into a rage. Seizing a cleaver, he hacked at Ruffian Wang who, despite receiving numerous cuts, sustained no fatal injury due to Hu Guohua's weakened condition from opium use. Bleeding profusely, Ruffian Wang fled to the local security force for help. The captain of the force, related to a local warlord and drinking with him at the time, was outraged by the midday assault. He immediately ordered Hu Guohua to be seized and bound. Before the tribunal, the captain demanded to know why Hu Guohua had attempted to murder Ruffian Wang. Tearfully, Hu Guohua recounted the events and lamented, "I owe my life to that rat. Without it, I wouldn't have survived my darkest days, and though I did not kill it, it died because of my negligence. How can I bear the guilt of failing such a friend? I am responsible for my actions, and I accept the consequences for harming Wang, but please allow me to bury my rat brother so I can die with a clear conscience." Before the captain could respond, the warlord, touched by the story, said, "Damn it, to remember kindness is humanity, to remain true-hearted is righteousness. If you can be so to a rat, how much more to people? I admire your character and see you're alone in this world. So follow me and become my aide in the army." In the chaos of those times, the ones who wielded guns held the power, and the word of a warlord was law. He commanded his subordinates to flog Ruffian Wang for Hu Guohua's satisfaction and released Hu Guohua to attend to the burial of his rat. Hu Guohua placed the rat in a wooden box, buried it, and wept profusely before he went to join the warlord. There's wisdom in the old saying, "When you're starving, bran tastes sweet as honey. When you're full, even honey loses its flavor. When brought low, a person can be deeply grateful for even a bowl of porridge or a piece of bread, let alone the considerable wealth the rat brought to Hu Guohua. Of course, the wealth was stolen. The sages teach not to drink water stolen from another, a moral standard rarely met by the most virtuous and certainly beyond the scope of ordinary men like Hu Guohua. There are tales of flies and rats in a house becoming addicted to opium smoke over time, and indeed, such tales are not without merit.